In June 2016, Australia's east coast was struck by a powerful low-pressure system. This destructive event caused widespread flooding, significant coastal erosion, and the largest waves ever recorded off the New South Wales coast. So, what are these incredibly destructive systems that we call East Coast lows?
An East Coast low is an intense low-pressure system that forms off the Australian eastern seaboard. We see them form from southern areas of the Queensland coast, extending all the way down to far eastern parts of Victoria and even occasionally impacting Tasmania.
The Bureau of Meteorology is actively working to refine the definitions of the names of the various lows that affect eastern Australia. Other names that you may hear in warnings and forecasts are coastal trough, transient low and Tasman low.
We often see coastal troughs. These differ from East Coast lows in that they don't have a single circulation within them. So we can see very localised, short-term, small-scale impacts, but they typically don't have the same widespread and prolonged impacts of an East Coast low. A transient low is a low that forms typically inland and then moves rapidly away towards the east. So it only spends a short amount of time impacting parts of New South Wales. A Tasman low forms well offshore. If the Tasman low is long-lived enough, we can see hazardous surf and large swell, but typically heavy rain and strong winds don't impact land.
One of Weatherzone's meteorologists, Craig McIntosh, was living in Sydney's northern beaches when that powerful East Coast low slammed into New South Wales back in 2016. He recalls some of the impacts that he witnessed firsthand during that event.
First of all, it was just a powerful system in itself. I think the winds are in the Category 1 tropical cyclone range, and the direction coming from the north going south opened up the southern end of the beaches to the powerful winds and swell. So those parts of the beaches such as Collaroy and Manly just got pounded by swells coming straight at them for a long period of time at excessive size and power.
As conditions deteriorated, the State Emergency Services set up a forward command post at the Narrabeen Surf Lifesaving Club. This became the nerve centre for rescue operations as large waves slammed into the nearby sand and floodwater inundated the surrounding streets.
The East Coast low was causing significant wave action, really destructive, just tearing away the ocean front and causing a lot of damage on the houses and home units up and down the coast area. In addition to that, the lagoon was starting to rise. It was unable to empty out into the ocean because of the high ocean wave actions, so we were starting to see lagoon flooding. The East Coast low itself was bringing really strong winds, so the winds were causing damage to roofs, trees falling. We had very heavy rain, so we had roofs collapsing and people calling in for requests for assistance because of storm damage to their house. We also had local roads being flooded, so we had not only traffic jams, but as we'd mentioned, flood rescues where people, despite our advice, continue to drive through floodwaters. So the impacts were all over the place in every way you can imagine.
Now, East Coast lows are incredibly dynamic systems, and according to the Bureau of Meteorology, there has been no apparent trend in their frequency during the past few decades. However, ongoing research is trying to figure out how these destructive systems may affect us in the future.
It's interesting that if we look at the brief instrumental record, say we look at the last 40 years, there's no apparent trend. But if we look at the coastal behaviour and we look at sand supply and sand transport that's related to wave energy, what we found was that during the latter half of the 1900s, there's been this decline in the supply of sand to our coast. And our conclusions there is that this declining sand supply represents this shift to more infrequent East Coast low storm seasons. Global warming is driving an expansion of the tropics. When the tropics expand, the east coast of Australia becomes more influenced by tropical lows between Fiji and the top of New Zealand. My guess is that type of storm we're going to see more of in the coming decades.
So East Coast lows will strike again, and it's possible that we will see more events similar to that of June 2016 in the years ahead. So if you live in Eastern Australia, anywhere from southeast Queensland down to Tasmania, it's important to think now about what you will do next time an East Coast low hits.
We'd like the community to start getting ready before these events, because there's going to be more of them. Sadly, there is. So we need people to look at their homes and work on trying to prepare their own homes. But in an event like this, the safest place to stay is probably at home, and then to listen to the emergency warnings that are put out and take notice. If you get an evacuation order, please take the opportunity to respond quickly, and that way you won't put yourself at risk, and equally important, you won't put our volunteers at risk.